My name is Rebecca Scully, and this is the first in a series of 6 webinars that we are going to present from PNAMP. They're going to each focus on the Monitoring Resources tool. This webinar is going to be a high-level overview, and then once we get into the series, it'll be more in-depth about each of the individual tools available in this suite of tools. So that being said, let's get started and talk a little bit about what Monitoring Resources is, what it can do for you, and how you can access and use it. And can anyone really afford to independently collect, manage, analyze, and archive all the information they need? Not likely. If our goal is to collect enough information to make sound management decisions on large landscape scale issues that are facing us right now, such as climate change, urbanization, a species of interest, we really can't afford to do that on our own. We have increased pressures facing us. We have decreased resources, and we actually have increased processing power as well. So if we can get more information and we can start sharing and using other people's data and information that they've collected, it'll be easier to make statements about the resources that we have available. So to do this, though, to make and understand the resources, we need to have infrastructure to support the sharing of monitoring data. And infrastructure, when I talk about infrastructure, what I mean is we need to be able to seamlessly flow information between different entities and organizations. So infrastructure building is characterized by building systems and then connecting these systems together. So when I think about infrastructure, a good example is electricity. We flip on the switch in our house and the light goes on. We don't think about all the bits and pieces that go into getting that light turned on. And for us to be moving forward with managing natural resources, it would be nice to be able to flip on the switch and get the data that we need, not to think about all the nuts and bolts that go into collecting and gathering that data, but being able to seamlessly flow it. And another part about building infrastructure to share information is people. So we can't just build systems and connect them together and imagine that that's going to work. We need to support sharing data by sharing information between people. We need to support organizations that encourage people to talk and understand what we need and what our needs are as a resource community. And to do this is difficult and time consuming. So to get both the systems together and the people together to get to this final piece of flowing information from different subject areas into one coherent system, it's really challenging. And because we're faced with shrinking resources and more demand for information, data collection, and analysis, we have a hard time doing this. But fortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, we have an entity partnership that helps us with that, and that's PNAMP. And I work for PNAMP. We're the Pacific Northwest Aquatic Monitoring Partnership. Our mission is to provide a forum to enhance the capacity of multiple entities to collaborate. So what we do is we help build infrastructure. We build the human infrastructure by supporting work groups and bringing people together. And we've started to build the suite of online tools, Monitoring Resources, which I'll talk more about in detail in a second, to bring information together. We are in the Pacific Northwest, but our tool set is expandable and is being used outside of our region. So our entity, PNAMP, works together. We have 19 signatory partners that form a steering committee. We have over 100 participants that work on multiple different projects, both creating the human infrastructure and creating the systems infrastructure to share information. And in addition to these 19 signatory partners, our regional collaborators, we also have other partners outside of the Pacific Northwest, including USGS Status and Trends Monitoring Program, the USGS Core Science Analytic Synthesis and Libraries, USGS Fisheries, BLM Assessment, Inventory, and Monitoring Strategy, and the North American Bat Monitoring Program. We have been able to reach outside of our original scope to bring these other people in and other organizations and monitoring interests into to start working with us and building connections between things. And our long-term goals for doing this are to coordinate data collection, analysis, and management. We want to try and help people reduce silos so information isn't stored in one place and then it can't be accessed and it can't be understood and used in other different ways. You look around, you can start seeing that people are doing really interesting things with data that was never intended to be used in a way just because they have access to it. And if we silo our information, we're not able to do that. We also strive to share information so we can promote cost sharing and efficiencies. You can see who's sampling data and who's collecting what information where, and then you can start understanding how you can use their information or if you can coordinate your data collection with them. By using these resources, and one of our major goals is to help provide timely products for decision making. We can collect all the information in the world, but if we can't get to the point of making decisions, then it's hard. Then we haven't really achieved our goal. Additionally, a final piece of the puzzle is we're trying to promote transparency and accountability in building these systems. So the ability to understand who's doing what, where, when, and how, and then see that they're completing that action and moving forward and knowing where we can find that information and data if it is available. To do all this and to create all these relationships and partnerships, we have facilitated the building of the Monitoring Resources web tool set. And what Monitoring Resources is an online system to support project design and documentation. You can go there right now. We will go there in a little bit. I will walk us through a live demo. You can search through the site. You can see different pieces of information. The website was developed here in the Pacific Northwest to support aquatic monitoring. But like I said, we have reached beyond our original scope, and we're working with multiple different partners that I listed earlier to understand how and what parts of the tools can be used in different subject matters and in different regions of the United States. And by doing this and by pushing through and working on some pilot projects, we hope to make this tool more applicable and user friendly so that it can be used as an enterprise data management or information management system for design documentation. So what does it help you do, and where does it really focus in the scheme of managing information? This is the data management lifecycle as described by the USGS. And Monitoring Resources supports the creation of robust metadata. The tool tends to focus on the plan step here: acquire, publish, and share. We have created different tools that will walk you through the steps that it takes to help you do your planning. We really focus on describing. We know that as busy researchers, monitoring professionals, and scientists, it's hard to always describe in a robust, consistent fashion how you're planning, how you're acquiring information, how you're processing and sharing that information. So what we've done is we've focused on that describe step, and we focused on building a tool set that will guide you through how to describe your metadata. It'll guide you through the process of capturing that so that then you have a consistent documentation of your data collection or your design associated with your data collection that can be shared with others and can be recreated and can be stored and persistent through time. That's where we focus the Monitoring Resources tool set. And by doing this and by creating this better documentation, we hope to achieve the goals I talked about earlier, and to improve access to information, lead to data discovery, promote collaboration and efficiencies, and move through these different steps of understanding and learning and sharing. To get more into detail about the tools, so those are our goals and where we're focused, but to get into specific details about the tools. And each of the tools themselves, we do an hour-long webinar. Tools can be used individually or as a suite used to document information from planning to discovery. So if you look at this current slide, we have resources and tools to support each of these steps. First, I'll talk about the defining your temporal and spatial design. Monitoring Resources supports the selection and documentation of your data collection sites. We have a tool that guides you through the process of selecting sample locations and documenting your spatial and temporal design. It walks you through step by step the process of selecting sites. We have multiple different design types that you can document. We have built in the SP survey package. If you are familiar with the GRITS survey design, we have a process to select spatially balanced probabilistic sites from a master sample. If you're not familiar with that and you're interested in learning more, I'd encourage you to go to Monitoring Resources. We have some resources there. So by using these tools in Monitoring Resources, You can step through the process of documenting design. You can learn about master samples, see site maps and boundaries. You can view and learn about sample files that others are using. You can import your existing sites and you can add attributes. Like I said, you can support the development of a statistically robust GRITS design using a master sample. We have ability to document other types of non-GRITS designs. You can download your shapefile from this tool that can then be used in your own data management system. And you can create consistent and persistent documentation. And what I mean by that is you will walk through a series of questions and answers and guided process. And then when you're finished, the tool generates a consistent documentation. So if you look at this slide right now, for each design that you document, so the information about where you're going to sample there, why you're going to sample there, and then those specific locations, and then when you're going to sample there. So this year, next year, the year after, you're going to return there, and that kind of information. If you walk through these series of questions and document that information, there will then be this information available to you to share with others. And then you will have a URL that's persistent through time that you can go back to and you can see, okay, these are the design decisions I made. I decided, in this case, that the land ownership is equal to the U.S. federal government. And we all have created and built designs on our own in R or ArcGIS or something like that. But by using this tool, you create a consistent documentation. So you can create multiple designs over multiple years and have the same information documented so you can compare them. You can create multiple designs in different regions of your study area, and then you can again compare them. You can share that documentation with your other partners. They can come here and they can see why you selected sites, when you're planning on sampling a site. They can download the shapefile associated with your sampling. So this is the tool that helps guide you through the documentation of study design, both spatial and temporal design. And then in addition to this, we have a tool that supports the defining of your response design. So what I mean by that is the documentation of your methods and protocols associated with the data you're going to collect. And we define a protocol as a detailed plan that explains how data are to be collected, managed, analyzed, and reported. And that definition is something that we came to based on available literature, Oakley et al. It's a National Park Service paper. We use that resources to help design our tool. And we also used a lot of regional subject matter experts to support these decisions and in this design. So if you're familiar with that paper and that resources, this will look very familiar to you. So our major goal is to help improve access to information and promote communication. And by doing that, again, we've created this tool which you step through to document your methods and protocols. And we like to think of methods as the atomic piece of the puzzle. So we have multiple methods documented and multiple people can use a single method in their protocol. So for example, if I collected fish length data, I could go to Monitoring Resources and I could search for fish length methods, and then I could use that in my protocol. Protocols we define as being more specific to a project with certain objectives and goals. Those are a little bit more detailed and they contain multiple different methods, but the method pieces that describe the actual step-by-step process of data collection can be reused in different protocols. So by doing this documentation in this way, you can then again get persistent documentation that's available online, can be shared with your other partners, can use it. You can print it from here and you can take it to the field to collect data. It promotes consistent documentation. You can track changes in protocols through time. We have the ability to version a protocol, for example, or a method. So say you went in 2016 and you realized that your method to collect information on our pebble counts isn't going to get you the answer or the information you need to answer your objective. You can then create a new version of your method and can show the provenance and the change through time of how you collected that information and then add that to your protocol. It also improves access to information. We all have probably at one point or another in our careers collected information in the field, and there's been a varying degree of how that data collection was guided. Maybe we were given a really detailed, well-documented protocol, and maybe we were just given a tape measure and sent out to the field to measure something. But by using this tool, we can promote that consistent documentation and access to information, and then reuse of the existing information. It also has an ability to have community discussions. You can sign on here, you can make comments, you can share information back and forth. We've used the discussion board for different method and protocol review processes and for different ways in user involvement. So that's a really good tool. We often have discussions about methodologies, and they might be stored in our email, which is great for the 10 people we're emailing, but it's not really great for the community as a whole. So by using this discussion board, we include more people and document these conversations about how we're doing data collection analysis. It streamlines the creation of metadata. This fully documented protocol can be shared with others. This URL can be used in your reports. You can download this protocol or method once you finish the documentation, and you can use that information in other places. It also helps increase interoperability between data systems by documenting how you're collecting information and how you're analyzing it. We can then understand if the two different pieces of information can be used together. You could document your methods and protocols here and then reference that in a different data system. So then you would know, for example, maybe protocol 194 that we're seeing here is used to collect this group of data and this group of data. So we know they're compatible. We have built ways to share the information documented in Monitoring Resources outside of the tool. We have built APIs for those of you who are more technically inclined. You'll understand what that is. And for those of you who aren't, I'll talk a little bit more about it in detail later. By documenting here, you can link to different data systems and start building this infrastructure of data collection and storage and analysis. In addition to defining your spatial and temporal design, you can define your response design here. We also have a few tools to help you implement your design. This part of the tool set allows you to export information from Monitoring Resources. We see it as off-ramp for information. You can export shape files that can be used in your data management system. You can export and print field manuals. There are some tools that have been built to export the information in Monitoring Resources onto a mobile data collection device. And again, using these APIs or these web services, you could call documentation from Monitoring Resources into your data collection system. So there's a lot of different ways that the information stored in Monitoring Resources could be used for implementing. And then in addition to implementing, we have built some tools to help support reporting of data collection events. So meaning that you has gone and defined your spatial and temporal designs, where you're sampling, why you're sampling. You've defined your response design, gone out and implemented, and then you can come back to Monitoring Resources, you document, okay, I've sampled here, and this is the date, and this is the list of the data I've collected. And by doing that, this reporting for realized sample locations, you might have planned to go 20 places, but maybe only made it to 15. And that becomes important when you're doing data analysis, particularly if your design was a probabilistic, spatially balanced design. You need to understand what sites you missed and why you missed them. So we have tools to track that. It supports the reporting and sharing of data collection dates. So you can come in here and you can share the date you actually collected the data. And for certain resources and data collection actions, it's important to know if information was collected early in the year, late in the year. It affects the results you might see. You can display data collection events on the same map as other project data collection events. So you can see your sampling locations on one single map viewer, and that allows you to see where your data collection is in relation to other people's data collections. It's the ability to document implementation notes, and you can record which metrics were collected at which locations. For example, you said you implemented a full protocol, but maybe the stream was dry, so you didn't do water quality because you couldn't collect a water sample or something along those lines. So by using this tool, you then can report back where you have actually collected data. So you plan, and then you come back and you report where you've collected data. And then that feeds into the final piece of the puzzle for Monitoring Resources, which is data discovery and sharing. Monitoring Resources has built the Monitoring Explorer web-based map viewer, which allows you to see multiple different programs' data collection locations on one map. Straightforward interface. You have a legend. You can turn on multiple different programs to see multiple different data collection events that have happened. Each of these events is then linked back to the methods, protocols, study designs that I talked about earlier. Click on one of these events and you can see the methods and the protocols that were applied there, the data collection study design. Was it part of an opportunistic design? Was it part of a spatially balanced design? You can also click on it and you can see the sample date, how many times it was sampled, and so on. It allows you to search by standard GIS layers. It allows you to investigate methods and protocols associated with each of these data collection events. And also you can add your information via an API web point. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but we have built the ability to automatically connect data systems so that we can display your data collection events here if you want to by using web services. At this point, I want to stress that what we're sharing and what we're promoting here is the documentation of metadata. We don't actually store data. We have stored the contact information and the data repository information associated with each of these data collection events. If you were to use this tool to search, you could then track down the data by visiting the data repository or contacting the owner of that data collection event. We've built this system to share this robust metadata, but not the data at this point in time. So that's the overview of monitoring resources. Like I said, each of those individual boxes and sections is a full hour-long webinar to get into the details of how to use the tool, how to make the choices and click through it. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested in one of those specific pieces, to contact us or come and attend our webinars throughout this series. At this point, I'd like to do a little bit of a live demo to show you monitoring resources so that you can sort of get familiar with it and you can feel comfortable going there yourself and clicking around and starting to learn about it. Let me get my web browser open. So this is Monitoring Resources. You go to www.MonitoringResources.org, and that's our URL. This is our home page. You can see that there's different navigation menus here for different pieces of information. If you go to Document, you can see the protocols and methods that I talked about. If you go to Design, you can then see the sample designs. For a new user, the Learn tab is really a great place to start. You can go here and you can see our glossary of terms, and the glossary of terms helps define the terminology used in monitoring resources. Throughout the website, you will see information in this blue color, and what that means is there's a definition hyperlink to that. So if you click on a term that you're not familiar with or you have a question about how we're defining in monitoring resources, you can click on those terms and it'll show you the definition. You can also go through here and you can see the definition. We have not created definitions. We have used literature and subject matter experts to help us build this glossary of terms, which we find is very important when we start communicating documentation and goals. Additionally, you can go to Learn and you can click on the FAQ, and that will take you to the Frequently Asked Questions page. This is a great place to start if you are interested in creating information to go into monitoring resources or understanding a little bit more about content or even contacting us. You can scroll through here and you can read through these different pieces and questions and answers, the frequently asked questions. Additionally, you can go to Learn and training videos. You can watch these short 2-minute videos to walk you through a very specific section of the monitoring resources tool. There's a lot of different information on here without signing in, but to enter your own information, so to enter your study design or your methods and protocols, you need to have a user account. And to do that, you can scroll to the top of the page and you can click this login button, or you can click the join, which was right next to it. And if you click this request account button here, you can then fill out this information. It's pretty standard account request application. You just go through and fill in this information. Click that you're not a robot if you are not a robot. If you are, well, that's a different story. And then you can create a user account. And then once you've created a user account, you can log in at this login page here, login information. So you can log in, and this will allow you to then enter information into monitoring resources. So enter your method, your protocol, or your study design. So once you're logged in as a user, you can see your name up here. I logged in as PNAMP, so this is Welcome PNAMP. You can click on your name and you will see the data associated with your user account, which is really convenient because you can understand which protocols and methods you have entered. And you can see here that I have 3 protocols. I have a bunch of methods. I don't currently have any sample designs, but you could potentially have them if you had created them. And you can come then from here, you can move through and easily navigate to the pieces of information that you have entered into monitoring resources. But if you're interested in other information in monitoring resources, not information you've entered, you can then go to each of the sections and you can search for it. So for example, we'll just look at protocols right now. You can go to Document, protocols, and that will take you to the full list of protocols that are in Monitoring Resources. There's different ways and opportunities to search this. I'm not going to go into detail right now about searching for protocols. We'll save that 2 webinars from now. But I just want you to know that you can click through each of these different pieces and search them and click on a protocol, for example, and you can see this detailed documentation. And then you can go in here and you can read and understand how people are documenting and what's required of documenting. Finally, just to sort of a little teaser for next time, you can go to the Explore and you can go to Explorer, and that will take you to the Monitoring Explorer map viewer, which is our web-based map viewer that our next webinar will focus on. Here is where you can see multiple different programs monitoring locations on one map viewer. Scroll around on this map and you can see multiple different projects, data collection locations. You can search by these different criterias here on the left. You can click on the identify and click on one of these purple triangles and you can see more metadata associated with that purple triangle. So again, promoting sharing data collection locations on one centralized map so that multiple users can see this. You can also put your own data collection locations on this map and see them in relation to these existing sites. And I will show that in a different webinar. Just know that functionality exists out there and can be used. Other things about MonitoringResources.org that are interesting are, this is our community discussion board. If you go to Connect Discussions, you can see all the different exchanges back and forth. We can help use this discussion board to create different discussions on methods or protocols or standard documentation and that kind of thing. It's a good way to track discussions through time. That's sort of the general starter's guide to monitoring resources. You can log in, facts and questions, and that kind of thing. So with that, I'm going to quickly switch back to the slideshow here. So all of these great outputs and this sharing of data collection locations, methods, protocols, and study design depend on people. We need input of information. We need participants and users of the tool. Like I said, we've been working to expand and create pilot projects so that we can expand monitoring resources to be used outside of the Pacific Northwest. Been using the tool for other applications. We have a lot of interest in that. So please feel free to contact us if you have some questions. But all of this great sharing and these map viewers all depend on getting information from other people. And to do that, there's the point and click, enter information. And we've also built these integrations with other data systems. We are building connections between partners' databases and this data discovery and documentation system so that you can document methods and protocols once, but they can be linked to multiple different pieces of information and data. Partners can store their data and their collection information in their own database, but they can then share it back with us in Monitoring Resources so it can be discoverable on this central map viewer, discoverable, searchable, and usable, so that we can, again, start sharing, collaborating, coordinating between multiple different entities for multiple different questions, to answer multiple different questions. Key features that we've been working on a lot lately is developed web services. And web services, for us who are not computer experts, which is definitely myself included, web services are a way to exchange information between data systems. We have built REST APIs that we are publishing right now, and here's the link to our APIs. You could go to this API documentation, search for what type of information we've had, take a look at it, test it to understand if that could be integrated into your data management system. Again, allowing your users to document methods, protocols, and study designs once, and then that information to be used in multiple different locations in your database, in a publicly facing database or a public reporting database, or the sky is the limit. We have tried to build a system and expose it so now that someone else's idea can help further what we do with this next. But this is a really exciting part of monitoring resources that has come along in the last couple of years, and I think that with the community's help and the community's interest, we can start developing some interesting tools and resources and using the information collected in monitoring resources in new and unique ways that we haven't even thought of yet. With that, I just want to mention a couple of things. PNAMP staff is available to help with multiple different facets of the monitoring resources tools. We do trainings. If you're saying to yourself, oh man, I really want to document my methods and protocols, we are available to do trainings and support. We have access to methods and protocols, and we can share that. We review protocols and documentation in monitoring resources, so we help people document their methods and protocols, but we also review the documentation that they've written for completeness to make sure that we have good, thorough, consistent metadata. We can help with entering methods and protocols. We can also help with finding methods and protocols, so searching the system for those things. We also can help with understanding the study design tools available. I do want to stress that we are not statisticians. We cannot design your study for you, but we can help you understand the tools that we have available and then work with you to understand if that will support your existing study design and implementation. Please feel free to contact us at any time. We're a very happy bunch, as you can see from these pictures. So with that, Monitoring Resources is a suite of enterprise cross-jurisdictional monitoring tools that work across much of the data lifecycle. They are applicable across the nation. They're a flexible framework. The more people we get to use them, the more robust the tools will be. We are always working to improve the documentation in the tools and the tools themselves. We welcome your feedback. If you get into the tools and you have some comments or questions, please contact us.